This was, by far, the sleaziest place we stopped for supplies. At least while I'd been part of the crew. For all I knew, the upstanding little courier starship had visited some real dives under previous leadership, but Captain Sunlight was both respectable and smart. I wondered whose idea it was to stop at this freewheeling anarchy market, set up on an asteroid that somebody had installed a gravity generator on. There was an atmosphere too, and a wide variety of stalls on this mile-long hunk of rock, but not much in the way of oversight. I saw 2 different fistfights in progress among the other ships, while we exited onto the landing pad. "Okay," announced Captain Sunlight, standing as tall as she could, which wasn't much. Lizzy little thing that she was, but she looked dignified. "Mimi, Blip, and Blob come with me. Trilly, take 1 or 2 others with you. Anyone else object to staying to guard the ship?" There was a hearty chorus of no's. Z turned a fusted eye on the pair of bystanders walking a little too close, clicking his pincher arms at them until they scooted away. In the distance, something that looked like fireworks coloured the sky. A polite claw tapped my elbow. "Want to come with?" asked Coles, the heat seeker with dull red scales. He was both shorter and stockier than the captain, and more importantly, he was good friends with Trilly. "It's a pretty interesting place. I've been here once before." "How safe is it?" I asked, wanting to be convinced. There were some bizarre things for sale in the stalls visible from here. "It should be fine as long as we're careful," he said, "especially with her around." He lifted his chin towards the insectile horror that loomed over him. Trilly loved looming. "Yes," she said, "especially with me." She flexed her own pinchers, glossy black to G's purple, and chuckled darkly. The red patterns on her carapace were especially vivid in the light of the nearby sun. I smiled. Trilly was terrifying, but she was terrifying. "Sure, I'd love to come." Coles aimed a claw in the opposite direction of the one that Captain Sunlight was looking towards. "I'm pretty sure I saw some Earth animals for sale as we landed." "Oh? Well, why didn't you say so?" I asked. "Lead the way." We checked in with the captain, promised to be careful, and were off. I had some interplanetary credits in my pocket that I didn't really plan on spending, but it was good to be prepared. I also had a mini stun gun in a different pocket. This place was just as chaotic as I'd expected, like an alien farmer's market with a distinct low-life element. Here was a humanoid selling pottery that glowed. There was a tentacle alien selling food that moved. Over there was a would-be pickpocket getting the tar beaten out of them by a large hairy what's-it. A hand appeared around the corner of another stall to grab a power cell and disappear. I kept my own hands close to my pockets, wishing I'd worn something with zipper pouches. "Ah," said Trilly, "there is the media." She didn't bother hissing in normal conversation, but as she led us over to a booth lined with shelves and run by small individuals, I fully expected the intimidation to come out soon. Just before we reached it, Coles rapped a knuckle on her forehead. "Hey, we'll be at the end of the row, see?" he pointed. "Yes," Trilly agreed. With a nod, Coles left her to her bargaining and waved me onward. I was a little concerned about this, but the end of the row wasn't far. We could yell for her to come charging over if need be. "See those guys in the solar ponchos?" Coles asked. He didn't need to point. I squinted. Hard not to. The clothes that the 2 plant-like people wore weren't as bright as the actual sun, but they sure were unpleasant to look at. The other shopkeepers were giving them some distance, leaving space between their little cart and the proper stores. Aside from the eye-searing fashion, they had ropey green limbs and faces like rose blossoms that wanted to be mandibles. Fleshy maroon, sharp-toothed mouth in the middle, at least half a dozen eyes scattered throughout. More than a little creepy. "I was watching with the maglens earlier," Cole said. "With the classification setting, they've got the Earth animals." He was watching my face as he said it. The series of expressions that I went through were probably interesting to see, as I got a proper look at what was on the cart. Earth animals, yay! Which ones? Those look like fish bowls, but there's no water inside, just fur? Are those cats shoved in fish bowls? I felt my face grow stony. "Coles," I said. "Who do we report animal cruelty to around here?" One of the plant guys was waving a bowl around, shouting about potted predators. A passerby turned him down and he yelled an insult after them. Nobody. I watched the guy hold up a different one and say something about food paste squeezed in through the lid. When he flipped the cap to demonstrate, piteous mewling filtered out. What about theft? I asked. Also no. Good, I said, voice flat. Go get Trilly, then help me steal these. It took less convincing than I thought. Trilly already had her selection of media in a bag slung behind her, and she chuckled evilly. Coles cracked his knuckles and talked strategy. Then we went for it. Hello, I said, approaching the cellars alone. How many of these do you have? Everything on this cart, said the taller one with the bigger blossom head. Limited supply, very valuable. Get them before they're gone. He picked up a fishbowl full of grey fur, turning it like a fine art appreciator. A tiny face with big eyes peered out, mewing silently. Stars? These were kittens. You don't have a source of more? I asked, trying to sound unimpressed. These are very exotic from a faraway planet, he said. The shorter one bent to pull a big bowl from the bottom shelf of the cart. Perhaps we can interest you in a larger model. It's one of a kind. That's the mother cat. Good. I straightened up. I'll take all of them, I said. Everyone you have. The sleazy pair chortled and fawned and named a prize that could have brought a single-seater spaceship. I pulled out my tiny stun gun and aimed it at the tall one. No, I'll just be taking them. They, of course, laughed at me and pulled out their own weapons, which Coles had spotted and identified through the holsters. These were also stun guns, but a bigger and more painful model that put mine to shame. They weren't, however, very effective on people with exoskeletons. Trilly leapt out from behind the nearest stall, crossing the distance in a heartbeat of flashing black and red limbs, then reared up to stand over them with her pinchers flared, shrieking at ear-splitting volume. I'd already ducked to the side, so while they stumbled back and aimed, I got a great view of Coles jumping forward to grab their stupid ponchos and yank them off their feet. One of them shot Trilly in the foreleg, making her hiss a little, but the other didn't even manage that. And before I could use my little pea shooter, Coles had tackled them and wrestled the guns from them both. With an oversized stun gun in each hand, he got to his feet and aimed at the pair, just daring them to try something, like the 3-foot-tall badass he was. What do we do to you? Asked the tall one, rubbing his wrist but otherwise holding still. Yeah, how did we piss you off? The smaller one demanded, eyes locked on Trilly. I stepped forward with anger in my voice. You didn't offend either of them, I said. You offended me. At that baffled silence, I continued. Where did you get these animals? And what makes you think it's okay to keep them contained like that? They both answered at once, and neither was terribly helpful. Some space trader somewhere. They didn't even know where the cats were from. They're from my planet, I informed them, and they should never be treated like this. Any human can tell you that. Their answer was just a mumbling that sounded like, yeah, okay. Have you ever met a human before? I asked, stepping closer. I leaned in. My people eat things that look like you. They held very still, and didn't object when Trilly pulled their cart away. Cole stepped back to follow, stun gun still aimed. I put mine back in my pocket and gave them a final glare. Do not try this again, I said, or I will know. I turned on my heel and followed Trilly, with Cole bringing up the rear. He kept the guns. Shopkeepers and bystanders watched incuriously, but none seemed particularly bothered by any of that. I heard what sounded distinctly like laughter. As he walked away, the hustle and bustle that had quieted a bit gradually resumed its normal volume. I took the card handle from Trilly. Thank you, both. Trilly chuckled. My pleasure. Yeah, we're happy to help, Cole said, moving up to walk alongside. He looked over the half-dozen bowls that were rattling a bit, though I tried to pull the junkie cart smoothly. When you said you'd know... I held my chin up. As far as they can tell, I will, I said. Any psychic abilities on the part of humans is for them to worry about. Coles laughed quietly, and found the safety settings for the stun guns, saying nothing. We got the cart into the ship without any objection from the crewmates we passed, though there was a fair amount of curiosity. Trilly and Coles stopped to tell the story in the lounge, while I made a beeline for the medbay. I require use of your scanners, I told Eggskin, who was understandably surprised. But at the sight of the cats, they wasted no time in bringing out everything required for a full checkup. I made sure to scan for contagion first, cart and all. I certainly didn't trust those sleazeballs to be sanitary. All clear, Erskine said. They pulled gloves on over yellow-green scales. Do we have spare carrying crates in the storage hold? Oh, good point. We should put the family together. I opened the door and leaned into the hallway. Hey, Mur? Could you please bring a mid-sized carrying crate? It's urgent. Mur had been going a different direction, but he turned readily on dark blue tentacles with a sure thing. Thank you, I called after him. He was back in time with the crate, an ideal size for us to put Mama Cat into after our scan. She was dehydrated, but didn't show any signs of having been in there long. Good. A bit of proper food and a reunion ought to be just the thing. When we put the first kitten in with her, the purring was so loud it brought tears to my eyes. Erskine and I wasted no time in checking the others. They were all okay. Not even any fleas. I was talking with Erskine about where to keep them for the time being, when the door opened to let Captain Sunlight in. A curious crowd waited in the hall. I stood at attention. I'm not apologizing, I said, over the tiny kitten mews. She shook her head. No, I don't expect you to. Are you hoping to keep them on board, though? I shook my head. I'm sure I can find a home for them at the next space station. Anywhere with a lot of humans, really. These little cuties, and the mum didn't even hiss at me, so she ought to raise them to be friendly. Captain Sunlight nodded. All right, then. How about you keep them in your quarters as soon as they are clear to leave the medical bay? Yes, I was thinking that would be best, I said. I'll just have to be careful opening the door. Maybe I can rig a net as a barrier that I can step over to at least slow them down. I'll leave you how to figure out how to keep them from roaming the halls, she said. Or the engine room, or the cockpit. Yes, I will. She left it at that, and opened the door to shoo people away from the convalescing animals. The cart was already out there with the empty bowls and the food paste. They would be going in the kitchen trash. I saw Paint rummaging around the miscellaneous junk on the lowest shelf, which I hadn't bothered to touch. Her orange tail straightened with excitement. Hey, there's money in here. I winced. Captain Sunlight gave me an unreadable look. I felt bad about it, but then I looked down at the kittens tumbling over their mother, each getting licked in turn, and the feeling vanished. We can buy cat food with that, I said. The captain nodded. Of course. Then she sighed. Mimi is going to be insufferable. First we find a replacement hover bike, after all. Now this. A gruff voice called from down the hall. Told you it was a good idea to stop there. I grinned. The cats thank you. A toothpaste green octopus head popped into the doorway. Name one after me, said Mimi, waving a tentacle. I grinned wider. I think that's a great name for a cat.